So before we jump into making a stop motion animation and hearing more about some of our collaborators, we would like to first introduce ourselves, our teaching team, as well as hear a little bit more about who's watching us today. So we are going to go do introductions, and while we are introducing ourselves, we'd love to hear from you as well for those who are listening. So in the chat, can you please say your name, where you're calling from, and how about a favorite food of yours? Okay, so while you're typing into the chat, we are going to share a little bit about ourselves, and I'll start. My name is Deanna Jalisi. I am a museum educator at the Exploratorium in San Francisco, and I make and design creative learning experiences in a museum context. And I will pass the mic over to my colleague, Sebastian.
Hi, everyone. Very excited to be in this virtual workshop with everyone today. My name is Sebastian, and I also work at the Tinkering Studio in the Exploratorium as an educator and experience designer. I'm going to pass it on to Chris.
Hi, everyone. I'm Chris Rogers. I'm a professor of mechanical engineering at Tufts University and do a lot of research in how kids learn to engineer, of which tinkering is clearly a big part of. And I am very interested to see how all this works. The more you guys can put in the chat, the more we'll feel like we're not talking just to our own screens. So it'd be great to get a dialogue going. And I'll pass it on to Sarah.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm a PhD student at Tufts University in mechanical engineering, but I sit at the Center for Engineering Education and Outreach, where my research is focused on creating learning experiences that foster solution diversity in a STEM context. And I'll pass it off to Dipesh.
Hi everyone, I'm Dipesh. I'm from Nepal, and I'm a PhD student in the STEM education program at Tufts. And I'll pass off to Barbara.
Hello, my name is Barbara. I'm from Mexicali, Mexico. I'm a creative learning designer and an educator over here with kids, teens, and adults, and really excited to be here today. I will pass it to who left? To Chris.
Casey hasn't introduced herself.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Casey Federico. I'm a preschool educator, very interested in tinkering in San Francisco, California.
Thanks so much, Casey, and thank you all for introducing yourselves. We are going to hear from all these folks later on in this hour workshop. But for now, it's just going to be me and Sebastian, and we are going to talk to you a little bit more about stop motion animation. What is it and how do you make one? So you might see right here, I'm sharing my screen with a quick stop motion animation, but stop motion animations come in a lot of different forms. You may have seen them in commercials or movies. You can even, let's see what I've got here. You can even make a stop motion animation pretty easily with just paper and pencil. So stop motion animations, just generally speaking, are frames of images that are played back sequentially very fast. So it ends up looking more like a movie. And to make a stop motion animation yourself, we love using everyday materials and things that you can get your hands on. So things that I like to recommend if you're joining us today and you want to make a stop motion animation along with us, I like to recommend having things handy like maybe some scissors, some tape, Lego bricks never hurt anybody. Maybe want to use some of those. I also like to have nearby some colorful paper and maybe a way to prop up your phone to keep it nice and still. And so that being said, think about like maybe going around your house, maybe nearby, you can grab a few of these materials. And now Sebastian's going to talk a little bit more about what sort of technology you might need to make your own movie.
I'm sorry to interrupt you,
Sebastian,
Sebastian. You are on mute.
Sorry for that. All right, now I'm actually I'm actually here for you now. So I'll start by saying you can use all kinds of different materials for stop motion animation. But if you don't have a lot of things around, you can start with just one object. And I found this little guy, his name's Thomas, is a bear. I'd like to animate him today. And of course, you need a phone with the software that we are using. So I want to introduce you to the software real quick, so you can jump into doing stop motion as a learner. And later in the workshop, we will be talking about how to, the values of stop motion and tinkering as educators. To start with the software, Diana is screen sharing here this slide, how to use the Stop Motion Studio app. And we'll also put a link in the chat where you can get a link to this slide. And so that will give you a good sense of how to use the Stop Motion app. And while you go to that link, I will also show you how to use it real quick here on my screen. So when you open this app, you see a plus sign and you press plus. And that gets the camera going. And there is a little camera icon here. So click on that. And then you're already in the stop motion screen where you see a red dot. Now you can start taking pictures to make a stop motion movie. And one of the things that's really important is that you have your hands free to move your objects around. So I wanted to show you a quick, easy way how to make a stand for your phone so you have your hands free. Let's see if you can see that. You can just use a book and lean your phone against the book. And then you put your object. In this case, this is going to be a movie about Thomas eating chocolate. That's his favorite food. So I've placed these things here to start my movie. And now once you have that ready, you can actually click the volume rocker on your phone to take a photo. So I took my first photo. Now I moved the object a little bit. I took a second photo. And I can continue making a movie. So now you're ready to make your first explorations with stop motion. When you're done taking photos, press the play button here, and you can see a quick preview of your movie. So you can experiment with that as you go along, and you will find a lot of this information also on the slide that I provided. Now there is another thing about tinkering that is really important, and that is you would best do this with company. So if you have your family around or a spouse around, why don't you involve them in creating a stop motion movie? You can ask them about the story you want to make, or you get help in crafting. All of that is a good way of involving other people. And this gets me to another part that's really important to us in tinkering, is sharing what you make. Usually we sit around a big communal table in the tinkering studio, and so we can see what other people are doing, and we look at the examples of others. Now, since we are all far apart today in this workshop, we created a virtual tinkering table. So this will be our way of sitting around the table and coming to your house today. And there is a link that we'll put in the chat to that table. And I'll also screen share. Let's see if that works. How do I do this? Can someone tell me if this is working okay? Yeah.
I see a black screen right now.
Casey gave me a thumbs up. Yeah, Casey, is it working?
Yes, it's working. And you're getting lots of yeses in the comments.
Great. Okay. So I'll go ahead. So this is our tinkering table, and we actually started with this workshop even 2 weeks ago with our colleagues in Nepal. You will hear later about the workshop that was happening there, and colleagues in Mexico have done it before. So on our tinkering table, there are already examples from those places. And what's really great about this type of workshop is that we can get inspired by examples from around the world. And I just wanted to show you 2 of them that I quite like. So hopefully you see this one. You can enlarge my screen share if it's too small. So this would be an easy way to start a stop motion using maybe a toy or an object and combining it with drawing. So you can actually create an expression on an object. So that was an example from Nepal, actually. I thought it was really well done. And here's another one. That's a stop motion that's more focused on crafting. So if you like crafting, working with paper, you could start by creating an interesting paper background and then create characters and move them around. Now this stop motion, that works really well when your phone is actually facing down. And that's the last thing I want to show real quick. You can make a simple phone stand. So using books, there's many ways of doing it, but I made one where I'm using the phone wedged in between a stack of books and it's facing down. So that way I can have my stop motion characters move on the table. All right.
Thanks so much, Sebastian. And would you say, like, how can participants who are watching today use the tinkering table? Should they be looking at it? Could they be adding to it? What are things that we can expect?
Good question. So what we would love is if everyone today adds to the tinkering table. If you look at that link again, you will see that there's a red dot in the bottom right corner. And that's where you can add your movies. Now, usually these kinds of workshops take a day or half a day, or they could even take much longer. So in this hour, we don't expect you to finish a project, but we would love it if you share work in progress, or even if you just share a picture of something that is on your table that you want to work with. So throughout the workshop, I hope you get into doing your own stop motion, and I hope you will start doing this now. And Diana will actually take us to other people's homes, I think starting with Casey, who are also working on stop motion over the next hour.
Thank you so much, Sebastian. And we will hear back from him in just a little bit. But as he said, we are going to take a trip into a few makers' studios to see what they are doing, because the best way to understand tinkering is to actually tinker. So we're going to jump over to Casey Federico, a preschool educator in San Francisco, California. Good morning, Casey.
Good morning, Diana. It's so fun to be with you here. And I love that you say studio, because the reality is that my studio is my garage. So that is the space we're actually in, but it's very generous to call it a studio.
We all like making our own studios. Mine's in my living room. We were all just making it work right now. So thank you so much for sharing your space with us. And what are you working on today?
So one of the things that really interests me about stop motion is thinking about how to use it collaboratively with children. and I work in the preschool space, but the children who I am in contact with all day long are now my 6 and 9-year-old here at home. And what I've been doing with them has been collecting drawings that they have done and then working to animate their drawings. So I can show you my a little something that we created together, and then I can show you my setup. Would that be good?
That sounds perfect. Let's see.
Okay, great. So here we have my just a very short video that we created last night. So that's mom and daughter, and then mom picks up daughter and takes her away. And another drawing moving around. So that was a collaboration between 2 different kiddos and their drawings. But our setup here, just like was mentioned earlier, is very much, we use books as our stand, and I have my phone on top of the books. And then we've taken lots of the kids' drawings and just cut them up. So some of these were drawn for this purpose and some weren't. So here are the 2 characters that you met earlier. This is another character. And what we did in this situation was cut off their arm so that then the arm could be moved and used in different ways. And then just this morning, I was told there wasn't enough color this morning. So now we're working on this one, which I'll post to the Padlet. But we have somebody sawing down a cactus during a fire, very of the moment here in California. So I love how incredibly accessible this is. And I'm also thinking a lot, I work with a lot of preschool educators who right now are teaching virtually, and they're trying to figure out ways to have meaningful interaction. And so it comes to me immediately that if you had drawings from a number of different kids in your class, you could work collaboratively to create a story and to narrate that story and to share it. And that might be a really nice way to create community, especially with a new group of preschoolers.
That sounds fantastic. Just being able to use existing drawings or drawings made explicitly for stop motion, and to have kids come together and make an animation that combines all these things together, making a new story, new narrative altogether.
Exactly. And you know, this is the lowest tech possible, except for the phone. You know, it's books, it's tape, it's scissors, it's pictures. One sort of step up, I've worked in a number of programs where we make children do black and white drawings and we photocopy them. This is something that Project Approach uses a lot. And then children could add detail or change the picture as they go on. But it's also an opportunity, if you make copies like this, you could make an interesting stop motion that involved, you know, some of the same characters or same objects too. But I want to make sure and show you that really scissors, paper, phone, you've got it. And then there's of course new additions you could add.
That's a really good tip. I mean, just having like basic crafting materials seems like a really great place to start. But also if you have access to a photocopier, you can make duplicates, and that could also help aid in your animation. Well, Casey, thank you so much for sharing. And I look forward to seeing these animations on the Tinkering Table Padlet sometime in this hour.
Adam. Thanks so much, Deanna.
See you around. All right. Hey, Sebastian. We are now going to be welcoming our next tinkerer to the table.
Diana,
her name
I'm so sorry. Did you want to share about the mural for
Oh, yes. Thank you so much, Sebastian.
Sorry,
we are also collecting questions both in the chat, so facilitators can actively answer questions live, but we also have another space where we're hoping to create dialogue, and it's on our Miro board. So that's going to be pasted into the chat just now. And this is a place where you can add a post-it note to ask questions, add wonderings, and ways to also engage with us. And we're going to check back in on that board in a little bit. So just another way to engage with us as facilitators. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna jump over to our second tinkerer. Her name is Barbara Yarza. She is a creative learning designer in Mexicali, Mexico. Good morning, Barbara.
Hi, Diana. Really happy to be here.
So great to have you here. So Barbara is both an educator and also an artist herself, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about a project that she's working on. So Barbara, can you tell us a little bit about the stop motion animation project you've done?
Yes, well, this activity has been really exciting. Well, I'm working with other friends because I found this inspiration in the title of the workshop itself, like tinkering around the world. So I thought, how can I bring my friends and family and other colleagues to participate and to join and create a stop motion animation? So we set up this activity where we were animating an egg. We used an egg. Some of them used a brown egg, some of them used it white. And I asked them to create a short clip with some constraints. And then right now I'm putting together the work of my friends to create a story.
That's so cool. So kind of like what Casey was talking about, collaborating on these projects seems to be a really neat value of stop motion animation. So you're all able to come together over this one simple object.
Yes. Well, some things that I found in the way that we needed to have a certain base to start. So it was using an object, a white background, and some frames. So once we put it together, it's coming really, really cool. And I'm working on the transitions. Let me show you how it's looking so far. Can you see the screen?
I sure can.
Okay, here we go. So I'm using stop motion animation studio, and I just put together the animation of my friends.
That's so cool. And did you find this process, like what, did you find anything surprising about it or anything particularly challenging doing this collaborative project?
Well, yes. I think the transitions, that putting together the animation will be challenging, but I think it's also an opportunity to create new stories or new ways to joining one thing together. So we all had fun. They had
so
fun.
Cool. Thank you so much. I mean, and is this something that you're actively working on right now? Will you be able to share with us on the tinkering table Padlet board sometime today? Sometime this session?
Yeah, sure. I will add it once we're done. For sure.
Awesome. Well, I'll be keeping an eye out for it. I'm excited to see how this egg transforms in the story. Now, Barbara, you're also an educator who teaches stop motion animation, not just doing these sort of projects with friends, but also with students of yours. So I was hoping you could talk a little bit more about your role with stop motion animation in your practice as an educator.
Yes, so I would like to tell you that I have done stop motion animation before, but not that constantly, that during the pandemic. So we were trying to figure it out ways with kids, teens, and adults, like how to engage and how to have fun and how to learn concepts and create stories. So we've started this experiment where, okay, let's use a stop motion animation in distance learning and see how it goes. And surprisingly, the results are amazing.
Amazing. And I think I have a video here to share too. Is it, should I start sharing the screen?
Yes, sure.
Perfect. Then I'm going to share.
Yes, so this first video that Diana is sharing, it's about my university students. It was on March, and we were exploring feelings, how we are feeling during the pandemic and the lockdown and the uncertainty. So the results were great because you can see different materials, different approaches, different feelings, and all together. This is a short video clip, but if you go to Padlet, you can see the complete animations.
Amazing. So these were all made by university students of yours. So it sounds like stop motion can really work with a lot of different age groups, not just younger kids, but also with college age students.
Yes, and well, I didn't know how this will go with them.
Mhm.
but they love it. They told me like I saw objects in a different way. I had fun at home. I forgot for a minute that I was feeling bad or sad. So it was a great way to canalize feelings and
Yeah, just a
create.
great way to process what's going on right now, and be making these like very creative, expressive ways of dealing with being shelter in place and being at home.
Yes. And then I have another, well, many months later that we at Mexico, where I work at, we
Mhm.
launched a summer camp with kids. So we tried out how does stop motion look like while distance learning. So it was really cool because you can do stop motion with almost anything. So we did this challenge to animate our toys and imagine futures and tell stories. And the results were also great, and kids were so engaged.
That's so cool. So these are all kids at their own homes making animations and then sharing them with the other kids in the workshop.
Yes, it was live 1 hour, the duration, and was the instructor and then the kids sharing like we are doing right now. And so it was this process to creating a story, making a storyboard, and then bringing your toys to life and sharing your animation. So I think it's a really good way to bring kids together now that they can physically see each other, but it's a great way to collaborate and to bring joy to school and to any learning environment.
That's so amazing. And it seems like this is a really good fit for a lot of different environments. And Barbara, as an educator, like why do you choose to come back to stop motion animation? It seems like there's a lot of these great qualities, but what do you feel about it in terms of is it as a making and tinkering project? What are your feelings towards it?
Well, I think my main reflection is that play is free and play is yours, and no one can take away your play. And there's a lot of value in that. And it's a way to creative and self-expression in different ways. And we are building that confidence to our students and to our kids to communicate and to share feelings and ideas and stories. So yes, I think it's a great way to see the things from different perspectives. And in a world that seems to be turned upside down, I think it's a great activity and way to build joy.
Thank you so much, Barbara. I mean, it seems like building joy, creativity, self-expression, these are all qualities we really value in making and tinkering, and that we can see those coming to life in these examples that you shared with us. And thank you for sharing these. For those who are watching and tuning in, check out the Padlet page for more of these examples that Barbara shared from her students. And also keep an eye out for this egg video that will be dropping just shortly. Thank you so much, Barbara.
Bye.
Bye. All right. We are now going to jump over to another one of our tinkering collaborators. Coming on the screen is Sarah. Sarah is a doctoral student at Tufts University and also a maker and engineer. Their makerspace. A little bit about that experience. Hi, Sarah.
Hey, Deanna, how's it going?
Pretty good. How are you doing?
Doing well. I think I lost you there for a second, but thanks for having me back.
Sure, absolutely. I was just introducing you and the project that you've been working on. I'm getting my screen set up so that you can talk a little bit more about this makerspace that you've been working with in Rwanda.
Yeah, awesome. So I had the awesome opportunity to go out and visit a makerspace in rural Rwanda almost over a year ago, before the world sort of got turned upside down. And it was really amazing to work with the girls there and think about creating a makerspace from the ground up with them to be a meaningful space that they could sort of drive their own learning in. And so obviously, since COVID happened, I haven't been able to travel back or work with them in person, and they're all learning at home remotely, just like we are. And so I thought it would be really cool if they could do some stop action animations, just like we're doing in this workshop. And so we've been having our group makerspace chat. We use WhatsApp. So we've been running some text making sessions. And when I proposed this idea to them, they really weren't excited about it. They really wanted to think about ways that they could help people, and are really driven to do tinkering and making in the context of solving problems that will make the world a better place. So if you wanted Deanna play the video, this is one of the Makerspace students explaining what her ideal project would be. Is that audio coming through for folks? Yeah, so if you can't hear the video, which is no big deal.
No audio. Let me try keeping with my mic open. Let me just try one more time.
Everyone's learning about coding. Yeah, that'd be nice. I was just saying, like, we're the only ones that actually know how to 3D print. Most people don't. My opinion. So it'd be nice if everyone would be able to learn.
Yeah, so what the student is talking with me about in that clip is just that she feels like with remote learning, it's really changed how she sees her fellow classmates being able to learn. When they were in school, we worked together to use CAD software to 3D print objects to solve problems. And so the thing that she's really motivated to think about is how can they broaden access to getting more students and more people, even outside the school with the Makerspace, to get to engage in 3D printing to solve problems. So on the next slide, you can see one of the ideas that they were excited to tinker with was these chalk boxes. So there's a lot of chalkboards at the school, and each classroom is sort of a freestanding building. So when students walked between buildings or teachers walked between buildings, they would often lose chalk, it would break, it would get wet, then it didn't work on the chalkboards. So they wanted some sort of storage container. You can see the yellow storage container on the right was one of their first iterations. So it was sort of a basic, just a rectangle. It had a handle, but the handle actually broke off at one point. And so over the course of a few weeks, they really iterated and they learned a lot of CAD skills. You can see the blue one on the left was the final design. It has the school initials on it. It has a nice hook. So it was cool to watch them have their own agency and choose a problem that was really important to them. And through that problem, spend a lot of time tinkering and learning new skills to eventually come out with something that they felt proud of and that they learned a lot with.
That's amazing. Just to be able to identify a problem within their school that they wanted to be able to solve through making and tinkering, and to iterate on that idea, to be able to revisit and improve on the design that they had initially started with. This all sounds like a really rich making experience that's very meaningful to the girls that were working there.
Yeah, and I think it really just highlights the importance of letting students drive their own learning, and that it's okay to sometimes have students push back a little and say, that's not what I'm excited about, and make sure that you're finding ways for them to sort of own their own play, own their own tinkering, and the end result, I think, becomes beneficial for everyone.
That's so cool. Yeah, just being able to own your own experience just seems like such a big part of this whole process. And and as educators, for us to cultivate and to encourage learners to follow their ideas and to support them as they do. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for sharing these with us. You'll be back on the screen, I know, in just a little bit. But for now, thank you for sharing, and see you around.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks, Sarah. All right, we're now joined by DePace. DePace is a doctoral student at Tufts University, and will be sharing about a making and tinkering workshop that he recently ran online in Nepal. Hey, DePace.
Hi, everyone. So initially, we had planned for the kids in Nepal to attend this session so that you could hear from them. But because of the time difference, it's quite late for them. So instead, we'll be only sharing video snippets, but everyone here will still get to listen to their ideas and their thinking. Today, we don't have much time, but in the workshop, we had 90 minutes, and we actually started by asking the students to reflect on. So you see the animation on the left. the fish in the ball. So it's called a Thermotrope, and like we just showed them this animation and then asked them to wonder about like why this was happening or what they were seeing. And here's some of their ideas.
When it spins fast, and then I think because of the speed, it looks like the fish is going in the pot, I guess.
It looks like the fish is going in the pot because of an illusion.
I think because of the rotation, it looks like the fish is in the pot.
So as you can hear, like a lot of different ideas, a lot of interesting ideas. So ideas like speed, rotation, illusion. I guess like these ideas can be productive in a sense that like we can build upon these and try to define a more coherent idea of persistence of vision and why this animation actually works. And then just by looking at this, we asked the students to make their own thermotropes, and here's some of the examples they made.
I have made a bear eating a fish.
Sir, I've made two pictures of bird. One is flying and one is not flying. So, like this ball is bouncing. Sir, I have made from one man jumping from plane by using parachute. I made a man walking in a road.
So here as well, like the kids only had 10 minutes and they only had 2 frames, but like just by using 2 frames, they were able to come up with a lot of diverse ideas, which I think was pretty cool. And throughout the workshop, like we also could see collaborations happening between like siblings. Like some of the kids were working together in their own homes and they were talking with each other. Maybe the elder sister was helping the younger brother. But since this session was online, we definitely struggled with like some technical issues, and there was this really cool thing that happened without like me as a facilitator like helping the students. Like we could see students helping each other, and here's another example of how that happened.
Oh, cool. Looking forward to that.
So basically, one of the students.
Okay.
Sir, I know how to fix that. Click on the setting. Sir, look. Click on the settings.
Okay.
Click on the setting thing, and then go at the last of the settings, and if anything is selected in white, turn it off, and it will happen. Even that happened to me. Turn everything off in the setting.
So
what was happening there?
Yeah, so basically the one of the students was struggling and like his video got deleted, and another student jumped in and offered a solution. And today, like we are using the same mobile application, and if any one of us is struggling or having the same problem, then you have a pro tip from the students. So just use that pro tip.
Yeah, no, that's a really good tip that you can recover a frame. And also that even over an online workshop, that kids were also able to help one another too, and notice that when something was happening and that they could support their friends.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. And as we moved on, like we could also see evidences of like creative problem solving is happening. So here's a small clip that sort of like I stumbled upon when I was like going through the video. I didn't notice it at first, but like this is pretty interesting. So instead of like making like 2 separate cutouts of the girl, this student like instead decided to just make a cutout for the face and change the facial expression to animate her character, which I think was pretty awesome.
That's such a cool idea, especially when Casey earlier was talking about one way to do this was with photocopying, but I love how she found that just by switching out the face, that was enough to be able to capture different expressions. You don't need to make a whole new person, but you can just make a new expression.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And in the Padlet, like we've already set the Padlet, and you can see examples of what the students have put there.
Should we go take a look over there too? See what's
Sure.
project?
Yeah.
Cool.
Sounds good.
Yeah, there's a lot of examples from this particular workshop on the tinkering table Padlet. So we encourage you to go check that out and see example projects that are very diverse, lots of different stories being told there, and with a range of materials too.
Yeah. So it was really interesting to see a lot of different ideas. And another thing was also like we after we ran the session, the kids like still worked on their animations, and they uploaded their animations on the Padlet, which is pretty cool. And you could also see like, so in this particular example, like you can see the student used like a seasonal fruit. And it's like, I think it also is like reflects a part of Kathmandu as a whole. And then there are also examples where students use their daily experiences, like maybe playing a football or whatever is lying around their houses. So there you could see examples of like not just diversity in solutions, but also diversity in like use of materials and diversity in the stories and experiences they wanted to share. Diana, is there anything you particularly enjoyed?
I did. I mean, I really loved what the girl who had the two different facial expressions, the video that she ended up making, just because that video showed and it captured why it's, to have these different expressions in a movie helps pass the story along, creates more narrative around it. That was one of my favorites.
Cool.
All right, and Sebastian's back on the screen. Hey, Sebastian.
Hi, I'm noticing we are already, we only have 12 more minutes in our workshop, unfortunately. This is just too bad it's such a short online workshop. But in the chat, we have seen that people are actually making their own projects, and people are actually uploading too. Unfortunately, there were some problems uploading. Apologies for this. So hopefully you can work this out. So I thought we just have a look at the Padlet again. And I don't know, Diana, can you share?
Sure.
I can
Let me
share.
do that. Do you want to share, Sebastian, so you can drive the where we're looking?
Yeah.
Cool.
Good idea. Is it working now? See the Padlet?
It is coming on up. Just taking a second on my end to see.
Great. So, well, I wanted us to look together at the Padlet one more time, see what's being made. And I'd love if people have questions for us or suggestions for us to put them in the chat. And in a minute, I'll invite the whole group up to talk a little bit about their thoughts and ideas about and respond to questions that might have come up. Here there's on the Padlet a new post with a claymation. I just clicked on it. This is the second post and so on. Beautiful. So someone, and well, I'm sure someone has already experienced with that. So Play-Doh is a great other example and a good material for stop motion. There is a very high-level stop motion has been posted. It's called Western Spaghetti. If you have time after the workshop, I think that would be a great one to check out. And as you scroll through this, you see that people around the world have used a variety of materials and a variety of techniques. And I just wanted to use this moment to say something about the design of tinkering activities. So to have this wide open set of explorations is actually in the design of the activity. And we believe this allows for many different entry points for many learners. And so they can bring their own idea and their own passion into the space. And with that, documentation, of course, is really important. So we hope that this kind of website can allow learners to share and then continue after the workshop to share and more reveal the ideas that learners have and the things that they are passionate about. So in the remaining time, I wanted to invite Sarah and Chris up again to hear from them about things that they might find interesting in the chat. And then we'll have a short amount of time to wrap up and share with you resources that you might be interested. So we have Chris is here, Sarah has. Yeah, Chris, I'll just start with you. Is there something that you would like to speak to from the discussions or from something you saw on the Padlet?
So one of the things that that I find very important is developing ways to understand what the student is thinking. So we'd spend a lot of our time in education telling the students what to think, but much less time trying to figure out what they are thinking. And I've seen the stop action movie method as an excellent way to get at their thinking. So if we look at the Padlet, you can see what you're seeing as the students' ideas, and through that you're giving them justification and showing that you're valuing what they're thinking. Which is, if you look at the education research, is an excellent way to get people motivated to learn the material you want them to learn.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Sarah, did you have something that you wanted to share, maybe a tip or some response to what people have saying in the chat?
Yeah, I think one thing to build a little off of what Chris said is there's a stop action movie in the Padlet for the water cycle. And so I think that a lot of times the water cycle might not resonate with students in a class. And so using stop motion animation as just another entry point for people to think about science is a really powerful tool. And I think you'll see a lot of students that wouldn't otherwise be excited and willing to engage in certain kinds of material, really excited about it, and sharing their ideas with you and arguing with each other once they have this sort of non-traditional or more hands-on entry point.
Mm-hmm. Great. So it's not only an interesting way to grapple with a new technique like stop motion, but also to share and talk about a certain content or something you're passionate about. And I feel in this moment, the whole group all become co-learners because there is really something unique that each person has to bring in. And so in this reflection, you become actually, you all learn together and take it further. And that's also something about good tinkering activities. They have a low entry point, but they can be taken further in many different directions. So this can be a short exploration, but can be expanded also. Well, I think because of time, we might want to switch over to have Chris share some thoughts about classroom learning related to tinkering. And then afterwards, we'll have Diana share some more resources. Chris?
I thought I got to share thoughts about my childhood and my upbringing, but okay.
Oh, wow. You can, maybe we can take some extra time after for those who want to stay.
Yeah, right. Deanna, can you share the Google slide, please? So
yes, I can.
I wanted to try and wrap this into a lot of the research that we do out at the Tufts Center for Engineering Education and Outreach. And so essentially what we're trying to do is we're trying to find more ways that every student graduating from high school and college has some understanding of the engineering process. So this idea of how to solve problems, of which, as I said before, tinkering is a big part. So what we really are trying to look at is how do we balance this difference between trying to get you, the student, to understand the knowledge of others and developing knowledge yourself. So we spend a lot of time in our K-12 world of telling you the knowledge of others and getting you to replicate that, but not nearly enough time in getting you to actually think like a scientist or like an engineer. And so we've tried to define what are we actually trying to do in the classrooms. First, trying to get kids to be curious. It's not a problem with third graders. It gets to be more of a problem with high schoolers and then adults even more so. But once you're curious, then you want to try and figure out how something works, how to solve some problem. At that point, you're set up well to learn how to learn. So you learn on your own. And how do you develop hypotheses and find evidence? We then also try and find ways in the classroom to give kids the time to reflect. And actually, stop action movies is an excellent way to get that reflection to happen. As kids start to make the movies, especially as they're making them in teams, they start to argue about what they're actually thinking. And it's through those arguments that they actually are doing a lot of the learning. And then, of course, to teach them the self-confidence that once they've actually learned something or figured something out, how do you apply that into new disciplines? Because it's that interdisciplinarity is where we start to really see a lot of the creativity happening. So how do you assess in a classroom whether or not you actually are succeeding? And one of our major assessments, and actually Sarah's whole doctoral thesis, is around this idea of having a large diversity of solutions across the classroom for exactly the things that DePace was showing, that students, if the diversity is large enough, students will start to help each other. And as Sebastian was saying, you'll create this environment of learners, of co-learners. And we also do a fair amount with peer assessment, because if you can teach kids how to both give and take critique, it's a very powerful skill set to learn, and it's a great way to get kids to learn how to leverage each other's knowledge. Underlying everything we do and everything hopefully that you saw today is really this idea of valuing what the student is thinking. So even if the student is thinking that something is different from what you've learned, so they're thinking that maybe that the earth, that the sun goes around the earth instead of the earth goes around the sun, if you can ask them and understand their viewpoint, and they might have very good evidence for that, for instance, that it's in defending their point that you're actually getting them to think like a scientist or an engineer, which ultimately is a skill set I think we need to work more on in actually all the countries we've worked with, to try and get kids to be independent thinkers. So that's sort of what we're shooting for at Tufts. And as I say, most of our stuff is actually working with teachers and schools, kids in schools, to try and hit up things that are on the standards, but in ways like you did today with the stop action movie.
Thank you so much, Chris. Yeah, and some more of these resources coming out of Tufts will be shared with this at the end of this workshop. But thank you, Chris, for highlighting some of these really important ideas that are applicable in classroom settings and probably in a lot of other contexts as well. So thank you so much for that. I'm going to bring back onto the stage Sebastian. We're going to talk a little bit about our tinkering big ideas, but also some parting resources to share. And we'll wrap up in just a minute or so. So Sebastian, we talked a lot about different things that we value in the tinkering process. Are there any other last things that we want to make sure that folks watching walk away with as they're thinking about stop motion in their own spaces?
Well, after this experience, starting with the colleagues at Tufts 2 weeks ago even, I think it's just thrilling, and it's important to say that it is great that people adapt this approach and try this approach in different contexts. And so I think it's important to create experiences that are playful, collaborative, and that really encourage personal expression. And I also think this is important to do it in the context that you have. So I think this shows that tinkering can happen around the world and in many different ways. And I would really, I'd love if people try it out in their spaces. And I would love them to value the ideas of the learners and the educators and facilitators locally to take on this approach and make it their own.
Absolutely. And we shared one type of tool using this stop motion animation app, but there are so many different tools and techniques that you can use in a tinkering process with animation. You can do it entirely with paper and pen. You can do with a lot of craft materials. You can do it very digitally. These are all just being able to experience and explore different materials, find what works well for you in your context, is all part of the tinkering process.
So maybe
fantastic.
we share.
Mm-hmm.
We just share a couple of resources, right? And then,
sure.
Well, we have this link to a set of slides, and there you will find a link to other tinkering explorations, and also our tinkering table for stop motion. And of course, we hope that the discussion goes on the tinkering table. We are also on Twitter, and we're always listening and curious, and we want to see what you're doing and tinkering. So you can find us on Twitter for sure. What else to say? Again, I want to thank Sarah, Dipesh, and Barbara for doing this inspiring work around the world in their locations, and of course the kids who were partaking in this.
Yes, let's make sure we get everybody back on the screen before we go. So for Sarah, DePace, Chris, Barbara, Casey, if you're still around, there she is. So yeah, this workshop was a labor of love. Clearly there's so many resources we would love to share with you around stop motion animation and the tinkering and making process. We could probably keep talking at you for hours, but we are at time. Please continue to follow up with us either over social media or through our email or web pages. And we'd love to see what you're making. Please continue to feel free to add to the Padlet and keep making and exploring with animation. All right, with that, I think we're going to sign off. Thank you all for watching, and we hope to catch up with you at another time. Bye, everyone. Stay safe.
Bye.